My mother-in-law humiliated us for needing help, then hated us for leaving. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories. My mother-in-law opened her door with a smile, but her eyes told the truth. Behind that smile was the need to control, to dominate, to own every inch of the space we stepped into. Her house wasn't just a home, it was her kingdom. And we, her unwelcome guests, had just entered the cage. It was 2023. We were broke, cornered by circumstance, and desperate enough to accept the offer to live under her roof. My husband didn't want to go back. Neither did I, but with no stable income and nowhere else to go. We convinced ourselves it would be temporary. Her welcome was warm, at first performative, like a poorly rehearsed play. She offered help and acted delighted to have us, but her eyes always lingered too long on me. I was the wife, she rarely used my name. I was more of a concept than a person, a threat, an intruder, an obstacle to her control over her son. Within days, the mask slipped. She nitpicked my every move, narrated my actions behind my back. Your wife tracked dirt on the floor with a dog's feet, but she cleaned it. Don't tell her I said that. One night, while drunk, she even grabbed my head and tried to force wine into my mouth like I was her puppet. My husband and I don't drink. She knew that, she didn't care. And yet, every morning, she smiled like the night hadn't happened. As if the insult, the aggression, the tension were all figments of our imagination. That house began to feel like a slow suffocation. Her rules were unspoken, her standards impossible. And the deeper we sank into our financial hole, the more power she had. She loved that. It was her home, her wine, her rules. And as far as she was concerned, we weren't people, we were property. Living under her roof meant living under her rule. And her rule was cruelty, dressed up in passive aggression, and polished wine glasses. Every night like clockwork, she and her husband would drink themselves into a haze. The clinking of bottles was our evening soundtrack, and by the time the sun dipped below the horizon, tension hung in the air so thick we could barely breathe. You'd think with two grown adults in the house, things would calm down. But their drinking didn't just make them louder, it made them cruel. Her husband, my father-in-law, was mostly silent until he wasn't. When he did speak, it was venom. He'd aim his bitterness directly at my husband. You're not a man. You've embarrassed this family. You'll never be anything. Always after the alcohol. Always loud enough for me to hear, even if I was pretending to be asleep. But my mother-in-law, she was the master of subtle torment. She'd smile to my face and then, minutes later, whisper poison into my husband's ear. I became the target of her frustration, her envy, her warped sense of superiority. She wanted to be needed, obeyed, adored, and I was a wall between her and the sun. She once commanded like a soldier. Sometimes she'd take it further. One night early on, when we still thought this living situation might work, she was drunk and told me, "Get him to speak his language in bed. It's sexy." I froze. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just disrespected, I was dehumanized. Nothing about us was sacred in that house. Not our marriage, not our privacy, not our dignity. She resented me for being his partner. She resented him for growing up. She resented us for trying to leave the nest. And the more we tried to build something outside her grip, the tighter she tried to squeeze. But even she had no idea how far we were willing to go to break free. The house was a strange place, either unbearably loud or eerily silent. There was no middle ground, no calm, just chaos or suffocation. Some nights the alcohol turned her into a tornado, slamming doors, yelling at my husband, throwing words like knives. Other nights, we wouldn't hear a single word from her. No hello, no eye contact, just heavy footsteps and slamming cabinets. The silence was never peaceful. It was loaded, we walked on eggshells, holding our breath, waiting for the next eruption. She hated when we were doing well, when we paid our bills, when we didn't ask for help. Independence was an insult to her. Her entire identity hinged on being needed. And when we showed signs of getting back on our feet, she became bitter, nasty, vindictive. One week, my husband had finished a big freelance job, and we were finally able to afford a few things on our own. We didn't share the news, not after the last time when she scoffed. We'll see how long that lasts. But she sensed it, she always did. She knew when we were slipping out of her control. That's when she got worse. She began to say things like, "You two act like you're better than us," or "You think this is your house." We never said those words, not once. But she could feel the shift, and she hated it. And then came the blowouts, every few weeks. Like a storm system, predictable but still terrifying. It always started the same way, too much wine. Too many unspoken resentments. And then boom, the yelling, the accusations. The old wounds ripped open and thrown in our faces. You don't do anything for us anymore. You're not the son we raised. You're nothing without us. And if my husband ever dared to stand up for himself, her response was always the same. He's your father. He's allowed to talk to you like that. That house, her house, was never a home. It was a prison made of pride, alcohol, and denial. And every day, we were running out of oxygen. It was late. I had gone to bed early, exhausted from another tense dinner where not much was said, but everything was felt. I was lying in bed in just my underwear, already drifting off to sleep, when I heard it, the creak of the door being pushed open. At first, I thought it was my husband coming in from brushing his teeth, but when I turned my head, it wasn't him. It was them. Drunk, loud, unhinged. His mother stormed in first, eyes glassy and wide, followed by his father, silent, brooding, like a shadow looming behind her. They didn't knock, they didn't hesitate. They barged in like they owned us, because in their minds, they did. You don't do anything for us anymore. She screamed, her voice shaking the walls. You've changed, you don't care about this family. Her words slurred, but her venom sharp. I pulled the covers over myself. Heart pounding, my husband stood between us, trying to calm them down, trying to reason. But there's no reasoning with people who have decided you're the enemy. He told his mother that his father had been speaking to him with disrespect for years. Her response: he's allowed, he's your father. Then his dad stepped forward, towering behind her like a bodyguard waiting for the order to strike. His hands were clenched, his jaw tight. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted to intimidate, maybe even hurt. I was frozen, humiliated, exposed in every sense of the word. I wasn't just in bed, I was in their crosshairs. That night didn't just cross a boundary. It obliterated the concept of boundaries altogether. It was more than disrespect. It was an invasion of our privacy, of our dignity, of our safety. And the next morning, nothing as if it hadn't happened. No apology, no remorse, no mention. Just a quiet kitchen, the sound of clinking mugs, and her fake sweet voice asking if we wanted toast. That was when I knew. We had to go. That morning, I sat at the edge of the bed, still in shock. The covers that had once felt like a safe haven now felt like prison bars. My husband stared blankly at the floor, his face a portrait of rage, shame, and helplessness. And then he said it. We're leaving. Not a maybe, not a someday, not a plan. A decision. We didn't talk much more that day. We didn't need to. Something had shifted. That night in the bedroom had pulled the last thread holding us there. But it was what came after that sealed it. The next day, his father, sober but still seething, looked him straight in the face and said, "You have 2 weeks to get out." A command, a threat disguised as a deadline. His mother, of course, later tried to walk it back. "He didn't mean that," she said with fake warmth. "You two are still welcome here." But we knew the truth. She didn't want us to leave, not really. She wanted him there, under her thumb, in her sight, in her control. And me, she wanted me out of the picture. But not too far gone, just close enough to manipulate, to humiliate. We didn't tell them our plan, we couldn't. If we had, she would have found a way to sabotage it. Guilt, rage, manipulation. Anything to keep us under her roof where she reigned. So we moved in silence. We found a place quickly, miraculously. We paid the deposit, signed the lease, and began the process of reclaiming our lives. A little each day, a few bags. A box here, a box there. Slow, subtle, intentional. We said nothing, until the day we were fully out. And then, on that final day, we told her. Her face twisted in confusion first, then disbelief, and then bitterness. "An apartment," she scoffed. "How can you afford that?" And finally, the words I'll never forget. "You'll be back." But she was wrong. Because something happened the moment we stepped out of that house. We started breathing again. First night in our new apartment. We sat on the floor, surrounded by unopened boxes, eating takeout in silence. But it was the good kind of silence. No shouting. No wine glasses clinking. No slurred accusations creeping down the hallway. Just peace. Raw, unfamiliar, beautiful peace. We had escaped. It felt surreal at first. I kept expecting her to barge through the front door, yelling about how we had made a mess with the dog, or accusing us of disrespect. But she wasn't there. Her voice wasn't in our walls. Her presence didn't linger in the air. It was just us. Just freedom. Our nervous systems didn't know what to do with it. Days would pass, and I'd still flinch at sudden noises. My husband would freeze every time his phone rang, expecting a guilt trip or a tantrum disguised as a check-in. We had become wired for survival, for emotional warfare, for walking on eggshells. Now we were learning how to walk freely again. We lit candles. We rearranged furniture at midnight just because we could. We laughed, real laughter, not the forced chuckle you use to dodge a drunk mother-in-law's probing questions. We had to relearn our relationship. 2. The pressure they put on him, had bruised parts of our bond we hadn't even realized were aching. But with every quiet morning, and every shared meal in our own space, we started to stitch ourselves back together. There were still moments of disbelief. Still questions like, did that really happen? Or how did we survive that? But more often now, there were moments of gratitude. We were rebuilding, not just a home, but our sense of self. And while we thought we had finally turned a corner, we didn't realize that her grip, her obsession, wasn't done with us yet. It had been almost a month since we moved. A month of breathing easier. A month of no shouting matches bleeding through the walls. A month of choosing how to live, how to love, how to be, without her voice poisoning every moment. That day was supposed to be like any other. I took my scooter out to grab groceries, wearing my favorite bright green shirt, the one my husband always said made me look radiant. After a successful grocery run, I decided to make a quick stop at the pet food store just before heading home. I was waiting at a small intersection when something odd caught my eye. A car passing slowly, almost creeping. Her car. I saw the license plate, her unmistakable hair. Her presence sent a chill down my spine. Still, I told myself no, it's probably nothing, just a coincidence. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Something inside me began to tighten. I went into the store, trying to act normal, but my chest was tight. I took longer than usual, half distracted, and when I stepped out and walked toward my scooter, I froze. There she was, parked across the lot, facing nothing, watching. My body flooded with adrenaline. I didn't know what to do, confront her. Wait, pretend I didn't see her. I mounted my scooter and chose a back road, one I'd never taken before, hoping to lose her. But when I glanced over my shoulder, she was there, 2 blocks back, car sitting still in the middle of a quiet street, watching, waiting. I felt sick. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't a chance encounter. She was following me. I snapped a photo. My hands were shaking, but I needed something, proof, because even I couldn't believe it was real. As soon as I did, she started to slowly roll away, like she realized I'd seen her, like the act was over now. I took another turn, and another. I rode until I was sure she wasn't behind me anymore. But it didn't matter, because now I knew she still wanted control, and she was willing to stalk me to get it. I burst through the front door of our apartment and locked it behind me, my chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths. My husband looked out from the kitchen, his smile fading the second he saw my face. She followed me, I said. My voice was quiet, but my words hit like a scream. He walked toward me slowly, cautiously. What? I pulled out my phone and showed him the blurry photo, her car. The license plate just visible, her silhouette unmistakable. I told him everything. The slow drive-by, the waiting in the parking lot, the motionless car at the intersection 2 blocks away, the eerie way she rolled off after I took the picture. I expected him to tell me, I was imagining it, that it wasn't what it looked like, that maybe she just happened to be on the same street. But he didn't. Instead, he sat down in stunned silence and said, "She's getting worse." That's when it hit us. This wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. It was obsession. She couldn't handle the fact that we left, that we didn't need her, that her son, her puppet, had finally cut the strings. And now, she was trying to intimidate me, to scare me, to remind me that she still had eyes, still had reach, still had power. But she was wrong, because I wasn't afraid of her anymore. My husband stood up, took a breath, and said, "We're setting boundaries. Real ones, and she's going to hear them loud and clear." He drafted a message, calm but firm, no room for ambiguity. He translated it into her native language and kept the English version beside it. No misunderstandings, no denials, no loopholes. He was done being their son's servant, and I was done being their scapegoat. This wasn't just about healing anymore. It was about protection. The text wasn't just a boundary, it was a barricade. My husband sat with his phone in his hand for nearly an hour, not out of hesitation, but out of care. Every word needed to count. Every phrase needed to cut through the delusion she lived in, the twisted belief that control was love and abuse was parenting. He wrote it first in English. "This is a final notice. You violated our space, our peace, and our safety again. Following my wife is not only disrespectful, it's disturbing. We have created a life outside of your home and outside of your control, and we are not returning. From now on, Contact is to be respectful and infrequent. Do not show up uninvited. Do not follow us. Do not try to manipulate. Any further intrusion, emotional, physical, or digital, will be seen for what it is: harassment. We are adults. We owe you no explanation for our healing or our boundaries. This is the last time we will explain ourselves. Then he translated it into her native language, making sure the meaning held. No wiggle room, no plausible deniability. He pressed send. We sat in silence for a long time after that. The apartment felt different, heavier, but also clearer, like we had finally drawn the line in stone, not sand. No reply came that night, not from her, not from his father, not a word. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. I kept glancing at my phone, half expecting a barrage of guilt-laced texts, or worse, a knock at the door. But instead, nothing. Maybe she was stunned. Maybe she was planning her next move. Or maybe, finally, she realized that she no longer had access to us. Not our minds, not our home, not our lives. That message was more than a warning. It was a declaration. We weren't afraid anymore. Weeks have passed. No messages, no calls, no late-night visits, just silence. But this time, the silence is ours. It belongs to us now, unpolluted, unshaken, and sacred. We've started to build routines again. Saturday mornings at the cafe down the street. Late-night walks without fear of who might be watching. Laughter that rings through our apartment, without the fear of it being weaponized. For the first time in years, we're living. Really living. I still carry that photo in my phone. The one of her car sitting in that intersection. Waiting's watching. I don't need it anymore. But I keep it as a reminder. Not of fear, but of triumph. Because we didn't just escape a house. We escaped a cycle. She said we'd be back. That we couldn't afford to leave her world. That we wouldn't survive without her grip. But here we are. We learned that love without respect is not love at all. That blood does not excuse abuse. That being someone's child doesn't mean being their punching bag. We're no longer trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding us. And we're no longer afraid of the silence. Because it is in this silence that we found ourselves again. We still look over our shoulders sometimes. Trauma does that, but we don't live there anymore in the fear, in the gaslighting, in the emotional captivity. We live here, in freedom, in healing, in peace, and we will never go back. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.